Kingsman, the Secret Service. Now, Kingsman, the Secret Service is about how a spy organization recruits a teenager into their training program after the loss of an agent, right before a global threat emerges from a billionaire tycoon. Now, this movie I was definitely looking forward to for the longest. This movie was supposed to come out like last year, and I was bummed that they moved it up to this year. But I'm glad that the wait is over, because this movie is really action-packed and fun. Now, this movie is directed by Matthew Vaughn, and you can just tell Matthew Vaughn directed this movie, because certain directors have styles to them, and from the beginning scene to the very end scene, you can tell this is directed by Matthew Vaughn. Now, a lot of people, or a lot of critics, are saying that it's Bond meets Kick-Ass, and I gotta say, it's more on the Kick-Ass side, but the Bond elements are there, and I gotta say, I can agree with that, because it has a good mixture of both. And you know what? The way he directs this movie, it kind of reminds me of X-Men First Class. The way he films the training program or training sequences. Even though you go through a bunch of tasks in his movie, it feels very entertaining for the most part. And it's not boring, it's never dull. And just like how X-Men First Class was, it kept the adrenaline going, it's the same thing with Kingsman. Because Kingsman is a whole lot of fun. And this movie stars Colin Firth, Terence Edgerton, who's a newcomer, and Samuel L. Jackson. And I gotta say, some of the character moments I thought were pretty good. And surprisingly, for a comic book movie, you usually don't get good character moments, but as for a comic book movie, it's kind of decent, so to speak. And when I looked at the trailers for this movie, I said to myself, Samuel L. Jackson is going to look like he's a caricature. And honestly, he kind of wasn't. And I can say, like, you can tell Samuel L. Jackson really had a lot of fun with this movie, or with this role. You can just tell he's like, I'm enjoying myself here, and it shows on screen. What I like about this movie is the fact that it doesn't feel like it's adapted from a comic book movie. It feels highly original. And this movie is adapted from a comic book from Mark Millar. And last time Matthew Vaughn adapted a comic book from Mark Millar was Kick-Ass, and we all know how good that was. And what I like about this movie is the fact that Matthew Vaughn, the way he directs it, it's not violence for the sake of violence. The violence plays into the story. Because I thought there was a scene there, I said, that didn't particularly go well, or why did he add that scene? But after the scene was over, I said to myself, okay, now I see why that scene went there. What I like about Matthew Vaughn is that every time he adapts a comic book movie, it has this sense of style to it, and it flows very well for the most part. And Kingsman: The Secret Service is no different. And what I like about Matthew Vaughn's style is the fact that he knows how to tell a story from beginning to end. Because just like how X-Men First Class was, it's the same thing with Kingsman: The Secret Service, but just with one singular character. And the way he adapts comic books, it's very unique, and not a lot of people can do that. As we see in comic book movies, if they're not done by Mario per se, they're not really as good, with the exception of a few, like X-Men First Class and others. But Matthew Vaughn knows how to adapt comic book movies, especially the ones done by Mark Millar. And honestly, I would love to see a sequel to this movie. I don't know if there's a sequel comic book, but I would love to see a continuation of the story, because Kingsman: The Secret Service was a lot of fun. And you know what? And normally I don't pick out scores from comic book movies, or just in general, because I don't got that type of ear. But the score for this movie was pretty decent as well. I really enjoyed the score for this movie by Henry Jackman. Henry Jackman and Matthew Vaughn makes a good team as far as score goes, because the score for X-Men First Class was just as good. I'm not going to say this one is better, but this one is very nice though. Now, the only issue I would have with this particular movie is the fact that I thought some of the character relationships in this movie could have been done a little bit better between Colin Firth and the main lead. But other than that, that's a nitpick. So with that being said, I'm giving Kingsman: The Secret Service 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's a real fun movie. If you're a fan of X-Men or Kick-Ass or just a Matthew Vaughn fan in general, you definitely will enjoy this. So guys, if you've seen Kingsman: The Secret Service, let me know what you guys think of it down below. Like it, hate it, and as always guys, please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.